The Galactic Consortium Hall was a theater of wonders and ridicule. It was where the best and brightest of the galaxy gathered to unveil their technological masterpieces, flaunt their civilization's advancements, and mock the less capable races who dared to stand among them. Today Earth was the punchline. Humanity's representative, Commander Aaron Voss, stood on the polished dais, her jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. Beside her was Earth's Starship, if it could even be called that, a squat, blocky monstrosity that seemed more suited to hauling garbage than venturing into the stars. Its dull gray hull looked almost shamefully outdated next to the sleek, elegant vessels displayed by other species. Some shimmered with iridescent nanotechnology, others pulsed with bioorganic energy. In comparison, the Earth ship was a fossil, an artifact misplaced in the wrong millennium. The laughter had started even before she reached the stage, and now it thundered like a storm through the chamber. Representatives of countless species howled, chittered, and clicked in unison. The Venari delegation, with their crystalline forms glowing faintly, emitted chiming laughter that sent shards of light dancing across the room. The massive Bragathar warriors slammed their clawed fists on the floor, roaring so hard that the air vibrated. Even the usually stoic Cerati, reptilian beings known for their inscrutable expressions, flicked their forked tongues in amusement. Voss took a deep breath, steadying herself against the ridicule. This is the E.S.S. Horizon, humanity's newest deep space exploration vessel, she began, her voice echoing across the chamber. It represents decades of research, innovation, and the indomitable spirit of Earth. Another wave of laughter erupted. A Xyrix engineer, a blob-like being suspended in a floating gel pod, burbled mockingly, "Spirit, yes. Functionality, no. Is it powered by steam? Or did your species rediscover coal?" Voss ignored the jab, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the podium. She could feel the judgment in every gaze, see the disbelief in every smirk. To them, humanity was still a fledgling species, barely worthy of notice. Earth's technological contributions to the galactic community had been modest at best, primitive at worst. The consortium had only allowed humanity's membership out of pity, and this unveiling wasn't helping Earth's case. A particularly condescending voice cut through the din. "Is it modular?" asked Krivarn, a towering insectoid being from the Cyric Dominion. His compound eyes glimmered with malice as he leaned forward. "Perhaps it transforms into something useful, like a storage crate?" The chamber erupted once more, and even Voss had to admit the joke stung. The Horizon did look unremarkable. It was intentionally so. The ship's true nature wasn't something to be paraded before alien delegations who saw Earth as a galactic sideshow. It was a gamble, a long shot, and if humanity had gotten it wrong, their mockery today would pale compared to the fallout. From the corner of her eye, she caught a figure standing in the shadows, observing silently. Dr. Isaac Rourke, the lead engineer behind the Horizon, stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He had insisted on coming, though Voss had tried to dissuade him. "I need to see their faces when it happens," he'd said cryptically with that maddening confidence of his. She wasn't sure whether to admire his conviction or dread the consequences if he was wrong. Krivarn stepped closer to the stage, his mandibles clicking in mock politeness. "Perhaps you could demonstrate its capabilities for us, Commander Voss. A ship that ugly must surely hide some extraordinary function." "Surely." Voss opened her mouth to reply, but a quiet voice interrupted from behind her. "Perhaps you'd like to see it in action then?" It was Rourke. He strode onto the stage, ignoring the stares and whispers from the crowd. He wore no formal uniform, just a simple utility jumpsuit with grease stains on the sleeves, a stark contrast to the ornate garb of the galactic elite. His eyes were sharp, almost predatory as he surveyed the room. "And you are?" Krivarn asked, his tone dripping with disdain. "Dr. Isaac Rourke," he replied, smiling faintly. "Lead designer of this ugly ship you're so eager to dismiss." Krivarn's mandibles clicked again, this time in amusement. "Ah, the creator. Perhaps you can explain why your contraption looks like something cobbled together by hatchlings?" Rourke didn't flinch. Instead he turned to Voss. "Permission to activate demonstration protocols, Commander?" Her heart skipped. This wasn't part of the plan. "Rourke, are you sure?" "Trust me," he said quietly, his gaze steady. The chamber had fallen silent, the audience leaning forward in curiosity. For all their mockery, no species could resist a good demonstration. Voss hesitated, then gave a curt nod. "Permission granted." Rourke stepped to the ship's interface panel, his fingers flying over the controls. The Horizon hummed faintly, and the lights in the chamber dimmed as its systems came online. The laughter had ceased entirely now, replaced by a tense, expectant silence. Activating transformation protocol, Rourke announced, his voice calm but edged with something almost defiant. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The ship remained as it was, bulky, unremarkable, uninspiring. The audience began to shift, some snickering quietly, others exchanging knowing glances. But then a low, resonant sound filled the room, like the hum of a distant storm. The horizon began to change. Panels on its surface shifted, sliding smoothly into new configurations. What had seemed like random plating revealed itself as modular components, each piece locking into place with a precision that belied its clunky appearance. The ship's silhouette elongated, its once boxy frame becoming sleek and aerodynamic. A faint, iridescent glow spread across its hull as hidden layers of nanotech activated, weaving patterns of light and energy. The laughter died instantly. "This is just the beginning," Rourke said almost to himself. The transformation accelerated. Wings unfolded from concealed compartments, each one bristling with weaponry that gleamed with unearthly power. The ship's engines roared to life, a sound that sent shockwaves through the chamber. It wasn't just noise, it was a declaration. The horizon had been a sleeping giant and now it was awake. Gasps rippled through the audience. The Bragathar warriors who had laughed the loudest, now leaned forward in awe. The Venari representatives' crystalline forms flickered erratically, their equivalent of stunned silence. Even Krivarn's mandibles hung slightly open, his smugness replaced by confusion. The ship's final transformation was the most dramatic. Its hull began to ripple, the nanotech shifting to form massive, glowing runes that pulsed with energy. The symbols were unfamiliar to the galactic elite, but to Rourke they represented humanity's greatest achievement, a hybrid of human ingenuity and recovered alien technology. Voss stepped forward, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "The Horizon isn't just an exploration vessel. It's a multi-role starship capable of adapting to any situation. Combat, diplomacy, deep space research. It can handle them all. And what you're seeing now is only one of its configurations." Rourke added, his voice calm but firm, "You laughed because you didn't understand. You dismissed us because you thought Earth was weak. But this is what we are, what we've always been. Survivors. Innovators. Adapters. You see a starship. What you fail to see is the culmination of everything humanity has ever learned, endured and fought for." The room was utterly silent. The laughter was gone, replaced by something far more satisfying, respect and fear. The silence in the Galactic Consortium Hall was palpable, like the moment before a predator pounces. Rourke stepped back from the Horizonous console, his expression calm but tinged with satisfaction. The once mocking delegates now stared at the ship as if it were alive, a primal fear flickering in their eyes. For the first time, humanity had disrupted the hierarchy. Earth was no longer just an observer at the galactic table, it was a contender. Commander Voss allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. "I trust that answers your questions, Krivarn?" she asked, her voice cool and steady. The Cyric representative hissed softly, recovering from his shock. An impressive display of theatrics. But transformation alone doesn't make a ship capable of surviving the challenges of deep space. Words and lights are cheap. His mandibles clicked in frustration, though his attempt to maintain superiority was failing. Before Voss could reply, the room's attention shifted as a low chime echoed through the chamber. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the hall, depicting the familiar visage of a consortium arbiter, an ancient AI construct that governed the consortium's regulations. Its smooth, featureless face glowed faintly as it addressed the room in its neutral, synthesized voice. "Commander Voss of Earth. Your vessel's adaptability is noted," the arbiter began. "However, the Galactic Consortium requires more than mere demonstration to prove the worth of a species' technology. The E.S.S. Horizon must undergo the rite of feasibility." The room erupted into murmurs. The rite of feasibility was a relic of ancient consortium traditions. It was more than a test, it was a trial by fire. Most species avoided invoking it, knowing the risks far outweighed the rewards. Ships that failed the rite were often lost entirely, their crews meeting untimely ends in the void. Voss's jaw tightened. This was no surprise. The consortium had never been content to let Earth's progress go unchallenged. "Define the parameters of the rite," she said sharply, keeping her tone measured. The arbiter's hologram shifted, displaying a star map. A system on the edge of consortium space glowed faintly, a place known only as PX-739, or colloquially, the Crucible. The E.S.S Horizon will navigate the Crucible, the Arbiter announced. A hostile system filled with volatile spatial anomalies, ancient war remnants, and hostile AI sentinels left behind by civilizations long extinct. The vessel must retrieve an artifact located within the system's heart and return it here. The murmurs grew louder, interspersed with gasps. The Crucible was infamous. Dozens of ships from advanced civilizations had entered it, and few had ever returned. Those that did came back battered, their crews haunted by what they had faced. Voss met the Arbiter's gaze, her voice unwavering. And the deadline? 7 galactic standard days, the Arbiter replied. That's suicide, someone whispered in the crowd. A Venari delegate, her crystalline form trembling, turned to her peers. Not even our dreadnought-class vessels survive the Crucible. This human contraption won't last an hour. Krevarn's mandibles curved into what passed for a smile. Finally, we'll see if Earth's arrogance matches its capabilities, he said, his tone dripping with malice. Voss turned to Rourke. He hadn't moved, his expression as unreadable as ever. But she saw it in his eyes. Calculation, determination. Thoughts? She asked, her voice low enough that only he could hear. Rourke's lips twitched into a faint smirk. This is exactly what we built her for, he replied. That was all Voss needed. She turned back to the Arbiter. We accept. The room erupted again, a cacophony of disbelief and disdain. The Arbiter, emotionless as ever, simply replied, so be it. Departure for PX 739 will commence immediately. The Horizon hovered in the docking bay of the consortium's orbital station, its transformed form gleaming under the sterile lights. The crew was assembled in the central command chamber, tension thick in the air. Voss stood at the center of the room, addressing the dozen individuals who had been handpicked for this mission. They were humanity's best, engineers, scientists, soldiers, and pilots, all bound by a single purpose. You've all heard the stakes, Voss began, her voice firm. This isn't just about the ship or the artifact. This is about Earth proving it belongs here. The galaxy has mocked us long enough. We're about to show them what humanity is capable of. The crew exchanged nervous glances but nodded. They knew the Crucible's reputation. Dr. Rourke stepped forward, his usual aloofness replaced by a rare seriousness. The Horizon was designed to handle the unexpected. The Crucible will throw everything at us. Gravity wells, electromagnetic storms, AI-controlled warships. But this isn't just a ship. It's a living system, adaptive and self-repairing. As long as we stay sharp, it'll see us through. As long as we stay sharp, muttered Lieutenant Chin, the ship's weapons officer. That's reassuring. Would you prefer we stay dull, Lieutenant? Rourke shot back, a hint of amusement in his voice. Voss raised a hand, silencing them. Focus. We launch in an hour. I want everyone at their stations and ready. No mistakes. No second chances. As the crew dispersed, Rourke lingered by the viewport, watching as the docking bay doors began to open. Beyond them, the Crucible loomed in the distance. A dark, swirling mass of energy and chaos that seemed to defy the very fabric of space. You seem unusually calm for someone about to fly us into hell, Voss said, joining him. Rourke's smirk returned. Calm? Hardly. I'm just good at pretending. He glanced at her, his tone softening. This is the moment, Commander. Everything we've worked for. If the Horizon survives the Crucible, the galaxy will have no choice but to take Earth seriously. And if it doesn't? Rourke's expression darkened slightly. Then I guess they'll laugh at us one last time. Voss didn't reply. Instead, she turned to the viewport, staring at the distant storm of chaos they were about to dive into. She didn't believe in fate or destiny, but as the Horizon began to hum with life, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's future was teetering on a knife's edge. For better or worse, the galaxy would remember what happened next. The E.S.S Horizon tore through space, its engines blazing with an eerie, shifting glow. At the edge of PX 739, the so-called Crucible, space itself seemed to bend and writhe as if the system were alive and resisting their approach. Swirling eddies of gravitational flux distorted the stars, and flashes of iridescent energy lit up the void like distant storms. The ship's advanced sensors, enhanced by Rourke's proprietary tech, were already struggling to make sense of the chaos ahead. In the command chamber, Commander Voss sat in her chair, the weight of the mission pressing down on her. Around her, the crew worked feverishly, every screen and console alive with data. The tension in the air was suffocating, but no one dared speak their doubts aloud. Status report, Voss barked. Lieutenant Chin, who had been hunched over the weapons systems, glanced up. Shields are holding steady, but the fluctuations in the gravitational field are extreme. I'm reading spikes that could crush us in an instant if we're not careful. Engines? Voss turned to Chief Engineer Patel, who was seated at a console covered in glowing schematics of the Horizon's propulsion systems. Patel wiped sweat from her brow. The adaptive drive is compensating as best it can, but this isn't like anything we've encountered. It's like the laws of physics are improvising. She paused, her tone turning grim. This isn't a natural phenomenon. Someone, or something, designed this system to be a death trap. And they succeeded, Chin muttered under his breath. Enough, Voss snapped, cutting through the growing anxiety. She turned to Rourke, who was leaning against the central console, his fingers idly tracing patterns on the screen. Doctor, tell me we're ready for what's coming? Rourke didn't look up, his focus fixed on the data pouring in. Ready is relative, Commander. But if there's one thing I can promise you, it's that the Horizon was built for exactly this kind of madness. Before Voss could press him further, a piercing alarm echoed through the chamber. Ensign Mara, the youngest member of the crew, called out from her station. We've got incoming. Multiple objects on an intercept course. Hostiles. Voss demanded, already gripping the armrests of her chair. Unclear, Mara replied, her hands flying over the controls. Their signatures are erratic, but they're moving fast, really fast. 20 seconds. Battle stations. Voss shouted. The room burst into activity as the crew scrambled to their assigned positions. Lights dimmed, and the command chamber shifted to combat mode, the walls displaying real-time holographic projections of the space surrounding the Horizon. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. Weapons online. Targeting systems locked. The first of the incoming objects came into view, appearing on the external displays as dark, angular shapes silhouetted against the glowing backdrop of the crucible. They were ancient, their surfaces pockmarked with centuries of wear, yet they moved with eerie precision. Rourke's voice was calm but sharp as he identified them. Autonomous war drones, he said. Looks like they've been dormant for centuries until we showed up. Why are they targeting us? Mara asked, her voice trembling slightly. Because we're intruders, Rourke replied. The crucible isn't just a test. It's a defense system. Whatever's at the center of this place, it doesn't want to be found. Chin, take them out, Voss ordered. With pleasure. Chen's hands danced across his console, and the Horizon-S weapon systems roared to life. Pulses of plasma and beams of focused energy lanced out, striking the incoming drones. 2 were destroyed instantly, their fragments spiraling away into the void. But the remaining drones adapted, their movements becoming erratic and unpredictable. They're learning, Chin growled. Smart little bastards. The drones retaliated, firing streams of crackling energy at the Horizon. The ship shuddered as the shields absorbed the impact, but Patel's voice rang out in warning. Shields are at 78%. We can't keep this up forever. Rourke stepped forward. Switching to counter-adaptive protocols, he said, his fingers flying over the central console. The Horizon responded immediately, its hull rippling as sections reconfigured. New weapon arrays emerged, and the ship's targeting systems recalibrated. Fire again, Rourke ordered. Chin unleashed another barrage, this time with devastating accuracy. The drones, no longer able to predict the Horizon's attacks, were obliterated one by one. Within moments, the battlefield was silent once more. Threat neutralized, Chin reported, though his tone was far from relieved. But that was just the welcoming party, wasn't it? It always is, Voss muttered. She turned to Rourke. Doctor, how long until we reach the artifact's coordinates? 3 hours, assuming the path doesn't get any worse, Rourke replied. But it will. As if on cue, the ship's sensors began blaring again. Mara's face went pale as she read the new data. Commander, we've got a Class 4 gravity well forming ahead. It's pulling in debris, asteroids, shipwrecks, everything. If we get caught in it, we won't, Voss interrupted. Patel, can the engines handle it? Patel hesitated, then nodded. If I reroute power from non-essential systems, we might have a chance. But it's going to be rough. Do it, Voss ordered. Chin, keep an eye out for more drones. Mara, plot the safest course through that mess. The Horizon surged forward, its engines blazing as it approached the edge of the gravity well. The swirling chaos of debris was like a maelstrom, with fragments of ancient ships colliding and breaking apart. The ship's adaptive systems worked overtime, adjusting its trajectory in real time to avoid collisions. Hold on to something, Patel shouted as the Horizon was pulled into the gravity well's edge. The ship shuddered violently, and alarms blared as the strain on the hull increased. We're losing structural integrity, Patel yelled. Activating reinforcement protocols, Rourke said calmly, tapping a series of commands. The Horizon's hull began to glow faintly as nanotech reinforcements spread across its surface, bolstering its defenses. The ship pushed forward inch by inch through the chaotic storm. Finally, with a bone-jarring lurch, the Horizon broke free of the gravity well's pull. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief, though the tension in the air remained thick. Status? Voss demanded. Shields at 43%, Patel reported. Hull integrity holding but barely. We're not going to survive another hit like that. We won't have to, Rourke said, his eyes fixed on the external displays. Look. Ahead of them, the swirling chaos of the crucible began to fade, revealing a vast, open expanse. At the center of it was a massive, ancient structure. A station of some kind, its surface covered in glowing alien runes. The artifact's coordinates matched that structure, Mara said, her voice awed. We've made it? Not yet, Voss said grimly. We've still got to get inside and get out alive. As the Horizon approached the station, an ominous signal began to pulse from the structure, echoing through the ship's systems. The crucible wasn't done with them yet. The alien structure loomed before the Horizon, massive and ancient, its surface pulsing with an eerie glow. The crew stared at the screen in silence, each of them keenly aware that they were standing on the precipice of the unknown. This was the heart of the crucible, the point of no return. Commander Voss rose from her chair, her voice steady but firm. Rourke, can we confirm the artifact's location? Rourke's hands danced over the console, his brow furrowed. The signal is originating from deep within the station. The energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen. Whatever it is, it's powerful and it's active. Lieutenant Chin grimaced. Active how? Is it a weapon? Unknown, Rourke replied. But given the defenses we've faced so far, I'd bet this thing isn't just lying around waiting for us to pick it up. Voss turned to Patel. Can the Horizon handle docking? Patel shook her head. The structure's energy field is interfering with our systems. We'll have to maneuver manually and land in one of the open bays. It's risky. It always is, Voss said grimly. Chin, stay on weapons. Patel, keep the engines ready for a quick exit. Rourke, Mara, you're with me on the away team. Let's move. The landing was rough, the Horizon settling into a dimly lit docking bay with a metallic groan. As the engines powered down, the away team suited up, their armor reinforced with the same adaptive tech that made the ship so formidable. Voss stood at the airlock, her helmet in hand, addressing the team. This isn't just about survival anymore, she said. This artifact, whatever it is, represents humanity's chance to prove we belong here. We didn't come this far to fail. Stay sharp, stay close, and trust each other. The airlock opened with a hiss and the team stepped into the station. The air was thin and cold, the walls covered in glowing runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. The atmosphere was oppressive, as if the station itself were watching them. Rourke, what are we looking at? Voss asked, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. This technology predates anything in the consortium, Rourke replied, scanning the walls with a handheld device. It's alive, well, semi-sentient. It's analyzing us. Wonderful, Mara muttered, her fingers tightening around her rifle. They moved deeper into the station, following the signal's pulse. The corridors twisted and turned, disorienting and maze-like, but Rourke's device kept them on course. Finally, they reached a massive chamber, the ceiling towering high above them. At its center stood the artifact, a crystalline structure suspended in midair, radiating waves of energy that seemed to hum through their bones. That's it, Rourke whispered, awestruck. It's beautiful. And heavily guarded, Mara added, pointing to the shadows that began to shift along the chamber's edges. Emerging from the darkness were sentinels, sleek, humanoid constructs with glowing eyes and razor-sharp appendages. Defensive systems, Voss said, raising her weapon. Looks like they're not interested in letting us take the artifact. The sentinels charged, their movements unnaturally fast. The team opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the chamber as they struck the constructs. But the sentinels were relentless, shrugging off damage and adapting to their tactics. We can't hold them off forever. Mara shouted, her voice panicked. We don't need forever, Rourke said, moving toward the artifact. Cover me. Voss and Mara unleashed a barrage of fire, driving the sentinels back as Rourke reached the artifact. He placed his device against its surface, his hands moving rapidly as he worked to disable its defenses. Hurry, Doctor. Voss called, taking down a sentinel that had gotten too close. Almost there? Rourke shouted. With a final command, the artifact's energy flared, and the sentinels froze in place, their glowing eyes dimming. The chamber fell silent. Rourke turned back to the team, the artifact now hovering gently in his hands. "Got it? Good," Voss said, her voice tight. "Now let's get out of here before this place decides to wake up again." The team raced back to the horizon, the station trembling as if in protest to their theft. Alarms blared and the corridors began to collapse behind them. By the time they reached the ship, the docking bay was crumbling, debris falling around them. "Patel engines now?" Voss shouted as they boarded. The horizon roared to life, lifting off just as the station ceiling gave way. The ship shot out into space, narrowly avoiding the collapsing structure. Behind them, the crucible writhed and twisted, the energy field around it destabilizing. "Artifact secure," Rourke reported, collapsing into a chair. "But I wouldn't recommend hanging around to admire the view." "Agreed," Voss said. "Chin, plot a course back to the consortium." The horizon sped away from the crucible, the glowing storm fading into the distance. In the command chamber, the crew sat in exhausted silence, the weight of what they had achieved sinking in. "What now?" Mara asked, her voice quiet. Voss looked at the artifact, now safely secured in a containment field. "Now we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." When the horizon returned to the Galactic Consortium, the hall was packed. Every delegate watched as Voss and her crew presented the artifact, its energy lighting up the room in a dazzling display. The Arbiter's voice, for once, seemed almost impressed. "Earth has passed the rite of feasibility," it announced. "The Galactic Consortium recognizes humanity as an equal member." The room was silent for a moment, then erupted into murmurs. Many were grudging, some outright hostile, but the tides had shifted. Earth was no longer a laughingstock. It was a force to be reckoned with. As the delegates argued among themselves, Voss turned to her crew, a rare smile on her face. "They laughed at us," she said quietly. "But they're not laughing now." The horizon stood as a testament to humanity's resilience, and as the galaxy looked on, Earth's place among the stars was no longer in question.